Alright guys, with the lightweight GOAT Islam Makhachev officially vacating the belt at lightweight with 5 title fight wins, he's finally moved up to the welterweight division to hunt that double champ status. And on November 16 at UFC 322 in Madison Square Garden, we are finally going to see if he can do it, as the title fight between him and Jack Della Maddalena has officially been booked. But with Islam Makhachev moving up to welterweight, most likely for good now, we need to not only see how good he fares against the champ JDM, but we also need to see how he would go against a fresh division. The welterweights stacked top 15 ranked fighters. As we know, he's going to be fighting a few of them sooner or later. And that is exactly what we are here for today. In this Fighter Spotlight tier list video, we are going to be analyzing who are the best and the worst matchups for Islam Makhachev in the welterweights top 15. So we're going to be doing that by looking at a tier list here, which is going by the best matchups to moderate favorite, evenly matched, tough matchups, and nightmare matchups, as you can see. So the best matchups for Islam Makhachev, where he's going to be a pretty heavy favorite, are going to be in this best matchups category. And then we're going to go down. It's going to get harder and harder for Islam to where it's a nightmare matchup for him, if there are any. So that's pretty much a simple explanation of the tier list. And you can see here, we've got the 15th ranked Kevin Holland, and then we're going to go all the way through to the champion Jack Della Maddalena. So starting off with Kevin Holland. Kevin Holland is not going to be starting off great because he is going to be in the best matchups. Let's be honest here. Islam Makhachev, him moving up. I mean, I've only done Fighter Spotlight videos on new fighters coming into the UFC, not champions. So this is definitely going to look a bit different if you've seen any of my other Fighter Spotlight tier list videos. And Kevin Holland is just a pretty simple matchup, I do believe, for Islam Makhachev, because granted, Kevin Holland does have the reach there. He's definitely got a better reach. I mean, even Alexander Volkanovski has a better reach than Islam Makhachev. And Kevin Holland is a very tall, lanky, just big frame fighter for welterweight. And he does perform pretty well there sometimes. He does have power in his hands, and he does have some decent striking at range, and does have some decent takedown defense that he's worked on over time. But he would get absolutely swallowed by Islam Makhachev. There's just not really any form of debate here. Islam Makhachev would be able to take him down, completely out-control him with the Sambo-style wrestling, and submit him. Plain and simple. And when we look at Islam Makhachev as just a plain blueprint, he's got really good kickboxing that has been working on over time. He's got that Sambo base, so he's extremely good at wrestling, and he's got really dangerous choke-based submissions, as we know, and Kimura locks as well. So Kevin Holland just does not stand a single damn chance on the ground. Now, moving on to 14th ranked, we have Gabriel Bonfim, who is definitely a good grappler. I mean, he's pretty much finished almost all of his wins by submission. Very, very good. Hasn't been super tested through like a 3-round to 5-round fight at all. I mean, he did just beat Stephen Wonderboy Thompson, which was arguable that he could have actually lost that fight, to be honest. But he is a grappling test on the ground, don't get me wrong. But he is more of just an offensive submission-based threat. He's not someone that has actual good wrestling. That's like a lot of Brazilian fighters, to be honest. They've got the part A and the striking. They've got the part C and in the grappling, but they don't have part B. They don't have the wrestling to join it. And that's where Gabriel Bonfim, I think, would get overrun. But it would be more of a challenge for Islam, because Islam knows that at least Bonfim is offensively adept on the ground, and his striking is improving more so now. He's got a really nice jab, really fast there, but I do believe that Islam's just going to be the better over him, plain and simple. That's going to be a reoccurring theme as we're at the top of the division. But I will say that Gabriel Bonfim stands more of a chance than Kevin Holland does, because he is just simply more well-rounded. But I think Islam Makhachev around the 2nd or 3rd round would TKO Gabriel Bonfim. Now, moving on to D-Rod. D-Rod had an amazing performance against Kevin Holland, almost knocked him out like 4 damn times. And he is gritty. He's gritty. He does have hands, but he's super slow. Honestly, he's got jiu-jitsu as well, but Islam's just better everywhere. Let's be honest here. This is an even easier matchup than the Kevin Holland one, just because of Kevin Holland's range. So D-Rod, yeah, just doesn't stand a chance. He'd get destroyed anywhere, submission or KO, TKO, probably within a round or so, to be honest. Now, moving on to Geoff Neal. Now, Geoff Neal has come off an absolutely fucking horrific loss to Carlos Prates. And I think, honestly, I think Geoff Neal's going to be in a best matchup position for Islam Makhachev, to be honest. Geoff Neal is tough, he is durable, he's got good boxing, but Islam's boxing is honestly improving really well to the point where he is matching and even eclipsing Dustin Poirier in that fight that they did have. And I just don't see Geoff Neal having anything for Islam Makhachev, even when it comes to being on the feet, to be honest. He's just very aggressive in those exchanges, and when he wings his shots and he keeps his guard high. Islam is going to take him down. He's going to absolutely swallow him on the ground. But I do believe that he stands a better chance than D-Rod and Kevin Holland in that matchup, just because he's a more technical striker. He has got better wins than the both of them overall, but still doesn't stand a chance against Islam Makhachev. Now, Gilbert Burns. Gilbert Burns is interesting because he is someone that has fought someone that is quite similar to Islam Makhachev in Khamzat Chimaev and had an amazing fight against him, and that's because he had a really active guard to keep Khamzat working. And Gilbert Burns on the ground, with how active his guard is, even though he is old, he still does stand a chance on the ground there because he is a BJJ black belt that is actually proven. A lot of those black belts in the UFC shouldn't be black belts, let's be honest, but Burns is definitely one of them that definitely should be. And on the feet, I think he's just lost his touch, to be honest, at this point. I do think that Islam's going to be able to TKO him fairly easily, but he is definitely more adept on the ground, and that's where I'm going to put him in the moderate favorite spot. Not as high up as Gabriel Bonfim. Bonfim is closer to that evenly matched just because he is younger. He is looking just faster on the feet than Burns now, who is aging so much, and is just as adept on the ground, to be honest. Gabriel Bonfim is extremely impressive there. Now, Colby Covington next up in the 10th ranked. This matchup, honestly, I think would just end in a finish. Let's be honest here. Colby Covington would destroy Islam Makhachev. I really hope you know I'm joking. He would get outclassed pretty much everywhere, to be honest. Colby outclasses in the cardio department. Colby's got a fantastic gas tank, don't get me wrong, but he just gets pieced up anywhere, to be honest. I think Islam's weight translation through to welterweight is a big question in terms of how strong he's going to be, but I mean, how big he is at lightweight, I think it's going to be fine with him moving up to welterweight. Colby has pretty much just pillow hands, let's be honest here. He's not going to really do anything to Islam on the feet, and if Colby can't stay on the feet and strike with Islam there, and he needs to really go for that wrestling, I mean, Islam is going to stuff his takedowns for one very easily because Leon Edwards stuffed Colby, so Colby doesn't stand a chance against Islam in terms of getting him down, and Islam's got a more offensive submission threat and can out-position Colby anyway, but I do think that he would just TKO Colby on the feet, to be honest. I just don't think he really stands a chance here, but he does have the cardio, and if he could match that striking to a degree, he could push that fight further out, and that's where he would stand more of a chance, but yeah, bottom of moderate favorite, to be honest. He's closer to a best matchup for sure. But just with that cardio in play, I do have to give that to Colby in the least. But aside from that, he's getting fucking demolished, let's be honest here. Now, Carlos Prates, one of the more, real challenges when it comes to going up these rankings. Because Prates, as we know, has fucking dynamite in his hands. Just crunched Geoff Neal's skull. That's fantastic KOs on his record. The one blip in his record, as we know, is Ian Machado Garry, who really just countered his striking to perfection, used a lot of high volume, just stopped him from getting on the mark and getting that power shot off. Now, that was with Ian Garry's rhythm as a kickboxer, and Islam is a very good kickboxer, and that's where I think we could see a bit of struggle from Carlos Prates in terms of getting that momentum going and finding that power shot, because Prates, granted he has the reach advantage here against Islam Makhachev without a doubt, and has the power advantage over him as well, but he does keep a high guard, and Islam Makhachev is really going to be utilizing that wrestling-based game, and that's where I just don't think Carlos Prates is going to be able to get his game off effectively in that matchup. And going to the ground, I mean, Islam's obviously better, but the thing I gotta say, I mean, if you've seen that Carlos Prates versus Ian Garry fight, very, very underrated takedown defense, and most importantly, scrambling capabilities. Very, very good scrambling capabilities. Very, very good at rolling with the takedowns and getting to an advantageous position is Prates. And that's where I'm going to put Prates in the lower part of the evenly matched. I'm not saying that it's complete even odds here. It'll make more sense as I go along. But you got to remember, the end of the day, Carlos Prates has one hit KO power. And Islam Makhachev, one of the big takeaways in terms of moving up to welterweight is he going to be able to take a shot? Because that is where, Islam Makhachev, I am a bit worried for him moving up to this division in terms of these power punches. Like Carlos Prates, and kind of like Joaquin Buckley as well, who we're moving into now. And Joaquin Buckley, he's got the strength, he's got the explosivity in his hands, and he's very, very good at boxing range, which Islam is going to have to look out for if it stays there. But when we look at that Kamaru Usman fight, man, Buckley got exposed. He got completely exposed in that matchup, and Islam Makhachev would be able to not only out-control Joaquin Buckley on the ground, he would be able to submit Joaquin Buckley. I'm going to put him at the top of moderate favorite, closer to the evenly matched. He's better than all these guys. But aside from that explosivity and that power he has in his hands, Buckley's going to be getting taken down, and I think he's going to be getting submitted in that fight. And Prates, in the matchup between him and Islam, I would probably be more inclined for a submission from Islam, but I wouldn't be surprised if that goes to a decision, because with Prates' power and his scrambling capability, I think Islam could be a lot more hesitant, but he could find the better shots with Prates being more hesitant on the feet. But now moving on to Michael Morales, 7th ranked. This guy is just difficult in general to really analyze with any of these things, because he does have a judo base that he's grown up with, but has fantastic striking, as we know, has like a pretty much perfect frame for welterweight, has a really long reach, is very filled out for the division. Very surprised he even fucking makes welterweight, to be honest. But he is very dangerous, extremely dangerous. And I just get this picture in my head where I could see him knocking Islam Makhachev out on the feet. I'm not going to lie, but we haven't seen the ground game tested enough for Morales to really be tested there. I just don't think we've seen it enough for me to be confident in the fact that he could manage on the ground with Islam Makhachev. And with that grappling test being unproven against a guy who is arguably like the best grappler in the UFC, I have to put him more so at the top of evenly matched. I just think his power and his frame in comparison to Buckley is super dangerous, along with his momentum as well. Like, he is feeling invincible at the moment. Absolutely fucking ran through Gilbert Burns in a couple of seconds. Like, he is someone that could be a champion in the next 5 odd years. Like, he is extremely impressive. So I'm going to put that at the top of moderate favorite. It's just the ground game that I can't be trusting in at the moment. Now, Ian Machado Garry. Very interesting, because Ian Garry is kind of like the Brazilian, classical fighter, where he's got good striking, he's got very good grappling, but the wrestling isn't all the way there, and that's where he can get exposed positionally on the ground. Now, can Islam submit Garry? That's actually a very tricky thing, because Ian Machado Garry is someone that has some of the most underrated fight IQ in the UFC. And a lot of people hate him. You guys might be screaming at me. I don't really like him, to be honest, but you can't just disrespect the fact that this guy is really smart. He nullified Carlos Prates' power, nullified Geoff Neal's power, and he nullified MVP's striking rhythm as well, and got him to the ground and just completely out-controlled him. So Ian Garry does prove himself, and with a full fight camp against someone like Islam Makhachev, I think he can have some tricky parts to that game for Islam to actually challenge against, where I think Ian Garry, especially with his leg reach, does some T-Rex arms on him, but he's got good leg reach, uses them as more so teeps, and he's pretty good with those leg kicks, body kicks. He's someone that dances around the outside fairly well. I think he could challenge fairly well. I mean, he's even taken Shavkat to the hardest fight that Shavkat's ever had, almost submitted him towards the end of that fight as well. You got to put some respect on Ian Garry's name, ultimately, to be honest. But I will say that the Sambo base at the end of the day, Islam Makhachev would be able to out-control him and win a decision there. And that's where I've got to put him in evenly matched, but I'm going to put him over Carlos Prates, to be honest, just with his fight IQ overall. I think it's extremely impressive. Now we're moving into the nitty gritty. We've got the top 5 and the champ, and we've got the former champion, the former pound for pound, Kamaru Usman. Now, Usman is a very big test, no matter how bloody old he is. We've just seen what he's done against Joaquin Buckley. The strength translation at welterweight is something that could honestly cancel out Islam's grappling game because he is very strong, but his fight IQ is extremely impressive. Kamaru Usman's boxing with his actual footwork is very, very good. He's someone that keeps quite a low base, very, very good at sprawling as well, very hard to take down, as we know. And with that footwork on the feet in the boxing range, we saw what he did against Khamzat Chimaev on like 11 days notice. Like, if Kamaru Usman has a full camp and plays his game well, he is dangerous. He is very dangerous. He's got the fight IQ. He's fought the who's who of that bloody division, and he's someone that's going to make it a very, very close fight, a very true evenly matched fight there. Now, moving on to Leon Edwards. Now, Leon Edwards on the feet when it comes to the kickboxing. Obviously, when Leon was champ and Islam was like really in his champ reign at lightweight, there was a lot of arguments about who would win this matchup between the two of them, which I did make a video on, which was like my second video of the channel if you want to check that out. It's probably not the best, but you could hopefully see the growth. But looking at Leon Edwards when it comes to his striking, his kickboxing overall, that specifically does compete with Islam's kickboxing, without a doubt. Leon is one of the most credited kickboxers when it comes to the UFC in general. Very, very technical on the feet. But we saw what happened against Belal Muhammad for one, is that he does kind of stutter. He does stutter when it comes to a very offensive ground game threat, and Belal Muhammad was able to really tee off with the boxing because Leon Edwards was so worried about that takedown coming towards him and getting pressed up against the cage. And even worse to emphasize, we saw what Sean Brady did against him, completely swallowed him on the ground, out-controlled him, out-muscled him, and submitted him. And that's exactly what Islam Makhachev would do to Leon Edwards, because it's MMA, it's not kickboxing, it's going on the ground. And I've got to go, honestly, I'll go at the top of moderate favorite. Got to put some respect on Leon Edwards' name, especially with that kickboxing pedigree. But actually, no, I honestly, Michael Morales, like that guy with that judo base and just the unknowns, I have a good feeling about him. I'm not gonna lie. Now, Shavkat Rakhmonov, ranked number 3. He is a very, very tricky matchup. Undefeated, has finished everyone but Ian Garry, is well-rounded. It's tricky now because he is ill, you know, he's been injured, he's not looking fantastic at the moment, but if we're obviously looking at a peak Shavkat Rakhmonov and hopefully, you know, hypothetically he comes back fully healthy, he's someone that doesn't have a lot of holes, but there are holes that are identified that Islam Makhachev would be able to expose. And on the ground, I think Islam Makhachev can control him, but I think it's a very difficult fight for Islam to really get a lot of value out of on the ground, to be honest, if he's fighting Shavkat Rakhmonov. I think where Islam Makhachev gets the most value is on the feet, without a doubt, because the biggest problem Shavkat Rakhmonov has is his strike defense. His strike defense is not fantastic. Geoff Neal really exposed him with that striking, especially in the first round, was really hitting him with those hooks. And that's where, especially with how much Islam Makhachev has been improving with his striking overall, with his kickboxing, and Shavkat, how aggressive he gets on the feet, I think that's where, honestly, I think Islam Makhachev could find a point where he could knock Shavkat Rakhmonov out. But Shavkat, if he's tightening up that strike defense simply, he's honestly difficult. He is difficult. I'm going to put him lower in evenly match. I'm actually probably going to put him here below Carlos Prates, just because of Carlos Prates' actual KO power there and defensive transitions as well. Carlos Prates to me is just like Shavkat, but he's just got more power overall. Maybe not the offensive submission threat, don't get me wrong, but is Shavkat going to be submitting Islam Makhachev? I really don't think so. I think he's got to hurt him badly first on the feet, but I don't see him outmatching Islam Makhachev on the feet in the first place, whereas Prates can outmatch Islam Makhachev on the feet if it does stay there. So I'm putting him just below Carlos Prates. Now, Sean Brady. Sean Brady is a very interesting matchup when it comes to fighting Islam Makhachev, especially obviously when it comes to the wrestling and the grappling. Sean Brady is very, very offensive with his wrestling, great positionally, great with his offensive jiu-jitsu based game. He is the closest thing to Islam Makhachev that Islam Makhachev is going to face in a mirror match, realistically, because Brady, he's not as adept on the feet. I will say that. He does have some holes there that really can be exposed. I mean, we saw Belal with his volume, and I think especially when it comes to any form of like offensive takedown threat, like Belal has used against Brady and has used against Leon Edwards, I think that's where Islam Makhachev could expose Sean Brady there. And when it comes to Sean Brady on the ground, I think it's honestly so competitive between the two of them, but I've just got to give it simply to Islam Makhachev with the high volume and pressure that he has on the feet with that kickboxing. And I do believe it would probably be like a late TKO finish for Islam Makhachev, or potentially a decision by how much grappling there is in that matchup. But I'm going to have to put Sean Brady, honestly, with how good his grappling is, I'm going to have to put him just behind Kamaru Usman when it comes to it. He is just that good offensively. Now, moving on to Belal Muhammad. Belal's obviously very interesting in terms of just like an emotional and psychological side because they're teammates. Like, this fight is just not going to happen. But if it did, Belal's a very interesting matchup because he is not a small welterweight for starters. He's honestly bigger than Islam, and he has got very, very good boxing. And fighting JDM, if he utilized a lot more takedowns in that first round specifically and pressured super heavy to try and cut down JDM's cardio, he could have found a lot more success and potentially could have actually kept his belt. But he believed too much in his Canelo hands, and that's the bloody problem. And doing that against Islam does have more tools overall as just a striker, much better knees, much better kicks overall. And I think he can just beat Belal Muhammad to the punch when it comes to the striking. On the ground, very difficult. I think Islam actually struggles against Belal because Belal's cardio is fucking ridiculous. Way better than Islam's, to be honest, especially when it comes to an offensive ground game, if they're both going at each other. But I do think that if they stay on the ground for a long enough time, I think Belal can get a lot of control. But Islam's just too offensively sound with his actual submission base. And I think he could find a submission against Belal Muhammad if they did fight. And overall, if they stay on the ground and they grapple for too long, Islam gets a submission, and Islam is just more accurate and has better kickboxing tools on the feet. So I think he would win, but I can't deny Belal, remember the decision Muhammad. The guy has tools everywhere. So I've got to put him, honestly, in evenly matched just behind Kamaru Usman. Now, the champion, the one we've been waiting for, the one that's actually going to be happening, Jack Della Maddalena against Islam Makhachev. Now, this, for my pick, will be controversial, but this one is honestly a tough matchup. I do think that this is a tough matchup for Islam Makhachev because Islam, I do believe I could justify him being a slight underdog here because, firstly, JDM with how he looked against Belal Muhammad, his size overall, the way he defends takedowns especially, has incredible boxing, like the best boxing in the division, clearly, and his base. He keeps a low base, and when the opposition, like Belal Muhammad, goes in and tries to strike with him, JDM is always keeping a lower base, and he's always making sure that he's not diving headfirst into striking exchanges where he can get taken down. And the best thing he does is he posts on the opposition with his head with a tight guard and bends his back over. He arches his back down. So that means that the fighter opposite him cannot just hunt his leg, go straight down for his leg and break his posture, because they've got to get through his whole entire upper frame first. I mean, if you literally just go back and watch the Belal Muhammad versus JDM fight, JDM stuffs Belal's takedown so well by keeping a tight guard, not like completely like raising it to the point where he leaves his whole lower section completely exposed where he can get taken down. He bends his whole body down to make sure that he's still blocking shots and ducking shots, but he's making sure that his base is low so that he's not getting taken down, and it damn works. And Islam Makhachev is a guy that really likes to make sure that he raises the opposition's guard and then really hunts down for those hips and drags the opponent to the ground. And that's not an easy thing for Islam to do against JDM, especially when JDM has really, really dangerous fucking knees, and he has really, really dangerous boxing. The best boxing that Islam would have ever faced. I mean, arguably with Volkanovski, but I think honestly, JDM, when it comes to a game where he can stuff takedowns simultaneously, his boxing is better than Dustin Poirier's in an MMA-based game. He just is. Like, he is very, very good when it comes to striking effectively on the front foot, but then also defending takedowns and countering effectively as well. The Belal Muhammad fight was just a showcase of that as a fact. So that's where if Islam is not getting JDM to the ground and it's staying on the feet, with the weight translation, with the power JDM has, and the clear cardio that JDM has as an advantage as well that we've seen against Belal Muhammad, JDM has a lot of threats for Islam Makhachev. Islam Makhachev could technically be a better kickboxer overall with his actual, like, kicks when it comes to, like, head kicks and stuff. But aside from that, he gets eclipsed in the striking overall. And when it comes to the ground game, don't get me wrong, if he is able to take JDM down successfully, especially with the weight translation, I think JDM is going to struggle if it's actually on the ground. And that's the biggest crux there. If it goes to the ground, JDM is more so, honestly, he could be screwed. I will not lie, and that's where I'm very close to that evenly matched. But I just think when it comes to the pedigree of JDM's new and improved takedown defense, along with that high volume boxing that is better than Islam Makhachev's, I think that he can honestly beat Islam Makhachev at UFC 322 and retain the welterweight title and get revenge for Volkanovski, please. But ultimately, looking at the tier list, this is just my opinion here, so I completely understand if you guys have a different kind of version to it, but this one I think is pretty consistent across the board. I can definitely argue that JDM could be up here and evenly matched, but aside from that, we can clearly say, when it comes to the divisions landscape, that Islam Makhachev doesn't really have any tough matchups here. He is someone that is that just higher pedigree and, in my opinion, conclusively can deal with the welterweight division fairly well. Let's be honest here. I think the only ones that can give him any form of actual challenge here are JDM, obviously. I think Shavkat Rakhmonov to a point, if he is able to really stifle that ground game and just, you know, really improve that strike defense. Belal Muhammad for sure. Sean Brady, when it comes to if he improves his striking leaps and bounds, and of course Kamaru Usman with his fight IQ, with the just amount of experience he's had and his technical striking on the feet. Yeah, he's someone that really could challenge. And honestly, I think the dark horse of the division, I gotta say, is Carlos Prates. I think Carlos Prates, especially just out of this whole realm here that we're looking at, he's the one with the one-hit KO power, and he's got that really good defensive scramble-based game when it comes to the grappling. And if he is able to exercise that, and with how he looked against Geoff Neal, not even getting touched, if he stays on the feet and he lands a shot, with Islam's chin moving up to welterweight, I think Carlos Prates does have a decent chance of actually taking Islam Makhachev out. So yeah, this is my tier list overall. Let me know what you think in the comments. I'd really like to hear what your changes would be, but please like, comment, subscribe. It goes a long way for the channel. And if you haven't already, definitely check out the video on the screen, and I will hope to catch you in the next one.